No one truly dies, not until they awaken. Those were the words the old monk whispered to me beneath the Bodhi tree, just as the sun slipped behind the Himalayan peaks, bathing the temple grounds in a golden hush. His eyes, deep and serene, held a quiet certainty, as if he had peered beyond the thin veil we call death and glimpsed something far greater, something timeless. Welcome to this sacred conversation. Today, we journey into mysteries most fear to approach: death, the soul, and the silent truth that breathes beneath them all. If you've ever sensed that there is more, something unseen behind every breath you take, then this message is calling to you. The illusion of finality. In the modern world, death is often treated like a terrifying full stop, the unspeakable end. We avoid it, mask it, or pretend it doesn't exist. But in the Buddhist tradition, death is neither the end nor even an interruption. It is a sacred transformation. The Buddha taught that all things which arise must also pass away: our bodies, our names, our stories, even our fears. Yet something endures beyond that passing. What remains when the final curtain falls and the familiar dissolves? A story, the funeral that changed everything. In a quiet village in northern Thailand, a young man named Sila returned home after years abroad, chasing success, status, and recognition. He came back not for celebration, but to bury his mother. The funeral was simple, traditional, monks chanting the Metta Sutta beneath ancient banyan trees, incense drifting through the air. As Sila watched his mother's body consumed by fire, something within him also began to burn, not in sorrow, but in revelation. A wave of clarity swept over him. He realized he was not weeping for his mother's death. He was mourning the life he had lived asleep. In that raw, broken moment, something vital awakened in him, a new way of seeing. Death became his teacher. Death, as the great teacher Buddhism, does not ask us to fear death. It invites us to meditate upon it, not out of morbid fascination, but as a path to liberation. The practice of maranasati, mindfulness of death, is designed to shake us free from spiritual slumber. It doesn't seek to terrify, but to awaken. The Buddha once said, "Of all the footprints, that of the elephant is supreme. Of all contemplations, mindfulness of death is supreme." Why? Because it strips away illusions. It forces us to confront. If I were to die tonight, what part of me would endure? Not your wealth, not your reputation, not even your thoughts. Only your karma, the living energy of your intentions, your awareness, your heart. The nature of the soul in Buddhism. Let's be clear. Buddhism does not speak of the soul in the Western sense, not an eternal, unchanging personality. Instead, it speaks of a continuity of consciousness, vijnana, a flowing river of awareness, moving from moment to moment, life to life. This current of consciousness is what carries forward, not the you imagine, but the essence shaped by your thoughts, actions, and compassion. There is no fixed self in Buddhist understanding. There is no unchanging self that survives death. Yet there is a subtle current of awareness, shaped by your actions, that moves through this life, and perhaps beyond. Imagine one candle lighting another. The second flame is not the first, yet it carries the same warmth, the same light. This is how life continues. This is why every thought, every deed, every moment of true awareness matters. Nothing is lost. It echoes across this life and into the unseen spaces beyond. Sila's true journey begins after his mother's funeral. Sila did something no one expected. He left behind everything: his career, his apartment, even his identity. He returned to the temple where, as a boy, he had first learned the Dharma. There, he shaved his head, entered silence, and took his first real steps into a new life. But it wasn't about becoming a monk in name. It was about remembering. Something deep within him had stirred, not just grief, but an ancient longing for truth. He saw that all his striving, all his ambition, had been a way of running from death. Now that he had faced it, he was no longer afraid. For the first time, he was truly alive. What is it that awakens? The scriptures speak of Bodhi, the awakened mind, a state beyond ego, beyond identity. When we say someone is enlightened, it doesn't mean they have become something greater. It means they have let go of who they thought they were. This was what Sila began to taste beneath the trees, hour after hour in silent meditation. Not that he was becoming better, but that he was becoming no one. And in that letting go, there was peace. There was truth. The journey of awakening is not about adding layers. It is about shedding illusions, shedding stories, shedding the masks we wear to hide our fear of death. A world asleep, most people do not fear death itself. They fear never having truly lived. We bury this fear beneath distractions, comforts, endless entertainment. Yet somewhere deep within, we know, time is slipping through our fingers. The body changes, the breath slows. One day it will stop. But that is not the tragedy. The tragedy is not that we will die. The true tragedy is to live asleep, to reach the end and realize we never truly awakened. The Buddha once compared unawakened beings to fish, flailing desperately in shallow water, restless and blind to the vast ocean within them. Death is not your enemy. Death is your mirror, a call to awaken, a moment of reflection. As you hear these words, I invite you, pause, place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, feel the breath as it enters and leaves your body. Feel its gentle rhythm, a precious gift given freely. And know, one day it will be gone. Let that knowing not frighten you, but deepen your love for this breath, for this life, for this sacred moment. Who is breathing? So ask yourself, not in fear, but in reverence. Who is breathing? And when this breath falls silent, what will remain? This question is not meant to be answered with the mind. It is meant to be lived with the heart. Sila beneath the Bodhi tree. Sila sat beneath the Bodhi tree for days, while the wind whispered through the leaves like an ancient chant. The sun rose and fell, unnoticed. He had entered the space between thought and silence, between identity and pure presence. And in that sacred space, something extraordinary unfolded. Not visions, not grand revelations, but a simple, profound remembrance. A remembrance of something beyond his name, beyond his story, beyond even his grief. A remembrance of stillness itself. Death as a doorway. In the Buddhist view, death is not an end. It is a continuation. It is not an event, but a doorway, a passage between one form of consciousness and another. The body returns to the earth, but consciousness, shaped by karmic traces, flows on. The Dhammapada says, not in the sky, nor in the depths of the ocean, nor hidden in the mountains, can one escape the consequences of one's deeds. This is not punishment. It is law, the law of karma. Just as fire naturally gives off heat, actions naturally give rise to consequences. No divine hand judges this. It unfolds by the simple rhythm of cause and effect. At death, we carry nothing of our possessions, our names, our titles. What travels with us is our tendencies, our attachments, the state of our mind. What is it that continues? But if Buddhism teaches there is no permanent self, no eternal soul in the way the West imagines, then what continues? The Buddha answered with a beautiful analogy. Imagine a flame lighting another candle. The new flame is neither exactly the same nor completely different. It is the result of continuity under new conditions. Likewise, rebirth is the movement of karmic momentum, a stream of tendencies, intentions, and consciousness. Not you in the egoic sense, but the echo of your choices, the patterns of your mind, the seeds sown in this and countless other lifetimes. The river that remembers. The mind is like a river. On the surface, it appears new with every moment, yet beneath, it carries memories, not of specific events, but of energies. Have you ever met someone you felt you had known forever? Or visited a place that stirred a strange, aching familiarity? These are not accidents. Buddhism teaches that the heart carries its own memory, woven from countless past lives. Not the memory of facts, but the memory of connection, of karma, of unfinished songs still echoing across the waters of existence. The energies we carry do not vanish at death. They ripple forward. And sometimes those ripples bring us back, to a body, to a family, to circumstances we must face until we are truly free. The wheel of samsara. This continuous cycle of birth and death is called samsara. It is not a punishment. It is a mirror. We are not reborn because we are condemned to suffer. We are reborn because the energy of clinging, of longing, of fear still moves within us. The wheel turns, not to punish us, but to offer us another chance to awaken. The turning of the wheel, we are not reborn because we are condemned. We are reborn because we have not yet seen clearly. Ignorance binds us to the wheel. Craving fuels its turning. We are caught in a loop, chasing pleasure, avoiding pain, clinging to fleeting identities, until finally a question rises, gentle but insistent. What if none of this is who I truly am? And that question, if asked with sincerity, becomes the beginning of freedom. Sela's remembrance. In the deep silence of the monastery, memories began to stir within Sela. Not memories of childhood, nor of any story he could name, but impressions, sensations, dreams that did not feel like dreams. He saw himself as a woman, a healer walking barefoot through a war-torn village. He saw himself as a starving child, begging beneath a moonless sky. He saw himself gripping a bloodied sword, then dropping it in shame. Were these literal past lives? Were they symbols rising from the deep well of mind? It did not matter. Each vision carried one clear truth. I have been many. I have lost many. But through it all, something has remained, an awareness untouched by time. The mirror of mindfulness. This is the heart of vipassana, insight meditation, not to chase visions, not to ascend into distant realms, but simply to see clearly, to see impermanence, to see suffering, to see the absence of a fixed self. So Sila watched. He watched his thoughts pass like drifting clouds. He watched emotions rise and fall like tides. He watched the breath, waves on the endless shore. And slowly, the tightly woven story of me began to loosen. The hard edges softened. In their place, a gentle spaciousness arose, a presence untouched by birth or death. What truly dies? When we ask, what happens after death? We must first ask, what is it that truly dies? The body, yes. The thoughts, eventually. The relationships, certainly. But beneath all of that, what remains? In the Buddhist tradition, what remains is awareness, not as an individual entity, but as the formless ground of all experience. Death is not annihilation. It is a return. It is the wave dissolving back into the ocean, becoming what it always was. Water. Death as the gateway. The sages do not fear death. Why? Because they see it for what it is, not loss, but the final illusion. Many great teachers seek death, not morbidly, but reverently. They meditate in graveyards. They contemplate decay. They sit beside the dying, not merely to comfort, but to wake themselves up. The Tibetan tradition speaks of the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth, a place of possibility, a place where, with training, one can awaken and break free from the cycle. But that freedom demands preparation. It demands the courage to face death now, while still breathing. The wisdom of letting go to awaken is to let go, not only of the body, but of everything we cling to. Let go of identity. Let go of control. Let go of the need to be someone, to become something. This is not nihilism. This is liberation. The lotus does not fight the mud. It rises through it, untouched. And so too must we rise, not by escaping suffering, but by seeing through it. Sila did not become a monk to escape the world. He became a monk to meet it, fully, vulnerably, and without illusion. The journey continues. Death as a teacher, he learned that death was not an enemy to be defeated, but a teacher to be bowed to. And through that bowing, he discovered something unshakable within himself, not an identity, not a belief, but a silence so deep that nothing could disturb it. And in that silence, he began to truly live. The death of who he thought he was. After many months in the monastery, a strange kind of death began to unfold within Sila. It was not the death of the body, nor even the death of the mind. It was the death of who he thought he was. And it was more terrifying than anything he had ever known. The ego's quiet grip. The ego is not an enemy. It is a tool, a survival strategy, a bundle of memories, habits, labels, and roles we collect to move through the world. But over time, the ego forgets it is a mask. It begins to believe it is you. And when that belief is threatened, when stillness pierces its veil, the ego resists. It clings. It panics. It makes noise. Anything to survive. This was the battlefield Sila faced. Not demons, not temptations, but the soft, desperate whisper of his own ego. You are your name. You are your grief. You are your story. The fire of suffering Buddhism teaches that all beings experience dukkha, often translated as suffering, but more truly, it means dissatisfaction, unease, dis-ease. And the root of dukkha is clinging. We suffer because we cling to what is changing, hoping it will stay. We suffer because we resist what is inevitable, hoping it will pass. We suffer because we identify with what is impermanent, hoping it will define us. The Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Anatta, the truth of no self, one night, under a sky thick with stars, Sila sat in meditation. The breath moved in and out, like waves meeting the shore. Thoughts came and went, like birds crossing the sky. But something had shifted. There was no Sila meditating, no self-striving to awaken, only awareness, vast and silent, watching the dance of impermanence. This is anatta, the teaching of not-self. It does not mean you don't exist. It means the you that you think you are is not what you truly are. The body is not self. The thoughts are not self. The emotions are not self. They arise, they pass, they appear, they vanish. So if they are not truly you, then what are you? Nothing and everything. You are not a fixed thing. You are the space in which things arise and pass. You are the clear open sky, untouched by the passing clouds. The moment the mask fell away. During walking meditation, Sila suddenly stopped. He was barefoot, feeling the warm, living earth beneath his feet. And for the first time, he realized something astonishing. He wasn't trying to become anything the moment the mask fell away. He wasn't trying to be a monk, or a healer, or a broken man seeking healing. He was simply here, breathing, walking, and in that moment, the mask fell away. It didn't shatter with a bang. It dissolved with a whisper, and what remained was peace. Awakening is not a lightning bolt. Many imagine spiritual awakening to be dramatic, like a flash of light, a cosmic revelation. But often it is far more subtle. It is the moment you see clearly, without clinging. It is the end of resistance, not the beginning of perfection. You still have thoughts, but you're no longer trapped in them. You still feel pain, but it no longer defines you. You still act in the world, but you're not lost in the actor. Awakening is the shift from identification to observation, from illusion to presence. The mirror cracks. One morning, Sila stood before an old mirror in the monastery. He looked into his own eyes and did not recognize the man staring back. Yet for the first time, he was not disturbed, because he understood, this face will age, this body will die, but what I am is untouched by time. He bowed to his reflection, not in worship, but in gratitude for the countless lifetimes it had taken to reach this simple, sacred moment. The power of direct experience Buddhism does not ask you to believe blindly. It invites you to see for yourself. Don't just accept the teaching of no self. Observe your mind. Watch your thoughts. Question every identity. Who is it that is angry? Who is it that is afraid? Who is it that suffers? And when you look deeply enough, you may discover what the sages did. There is no fixed self, just a flow, a process, a dance of elements and energies. And the one who sees that dance is free. The teacher, within, one day, a novice monk asked Sila, "Who is your teacher?" Sila smiled. He had studied the sutras. He had sat with wise elders. But now he understood. His deepest teacher was silence. Not the absence of sound, but the silence that listens, that observes, that knows. It was that silence that guided him when grief overwhelmed him. It was that silence that whispered truth when words failed. It was that silence that showed him what he truly was. Not a monk, not a man, not a memory, but a field of pure awareness. Freedom is simpler than we think to be free. You do not need to go to a cave. You do not need to renounce the world. You need only to see clearly, to be with what is, without clinging, without resistance. You don't have to become awakened. You already are. You just forgot. And the path is not about achieving something new, but about remembering something ancient. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. Sela's days. Sela's days now moved like flowing water, quiet, humble, filled with presence. But what had changed was not the world, the way he saw the world. It was not just where he walked. It was the way he saw. He no longer moved through the monastery Sila as a man. He moved as presence itself, watching, listening, flowing. And yet, a new question emerged, deeper than the last. If there is no self, then who is reborn? What happens after death if there is no one to die? The illusion of separation. Modern life feeds us one great illusion, that we are separate, separate from nature, separate from each other, separate from life itself. But Buddhism does not shatter this illusion through belief. It shatters it through direct experience. When Sila sat in meditation now, he no longer felt like a single being among many. He felt like one expression of a vast, living whole. He breathed, and it was the earth breathing. He cried, and it was the ocean weeping. He smiled, and it was the sun rising. He understood now. There is no me in you. There is only this one undivided, radiant presence. This is the wisdom of interbeing, a truth both simple and profound. Because you are, I am. Because I am, you are. Rebirth beyond the self. So, what is reborn if there is no self? The Buddha taught, what continues is not a soul, but a process, like one flame lighting another, or one wave giving rise to the next. The stream of consciousness flows forward, shaped by karma, intentional action, not as punishment or reward, but as cause and effect, as echoes of what we think, say, and do. Sila saw this not as theory, but in silence. Visions would come, like dreams unfolding across lifetimes. He saw a farmer's hand planting seeds, and centuries later, a child picking fruit. He saw a cruel word spoken in haste, and a lifetime of silence born from shame. He saw himself again and again, not as Sila, but as a pattern moving through time. And he wept, not out of fear, but out of deep, wordless compassion. Karma is a teacher, not a sentence. Karma is often misunderstood as a cosmic judge, but it is not about retribution. It is about education. It teaches through experience, not through morality. You speak with cruelty, and you feel the isolation it breeds. You act with love, and you taste the freedom it brings. Over time, these lessons ripen, not because someone rewards or punishes you, but because the law of interconnection cannot be escaped. Sela had once thought of karma as punishment. Now he saw it as a mirror, showing him not who he was, but what he was ready to learn. Death is not the end in the monastery. Death was not feared. It was honored. When a monk passed away, the community would chant, not in sorrow, but in gratitude for the impermanence that makes awakening possible. One evening, Sila sat by the deathbed of an elder monk. The old man's breath slowed, like waves coming to shore. Then a final exhale. Silence. And then, presence. No panic, no grief, only stillness. There was no panic, no grief, only a stillness that felt eternal. Sila understood now. Death is not the opposite of life. Death is the opposite of birth. Life has no opposite. What is the soul, then? In Buddhist thought, there is no fixed soul, but that does not mean we are empty machines. What we call soul is a stream, a continuous unfolding of awareness, shaped by karma, carried by intention, dancing through form after form. Like a river, it flows, but no drop is permanent, no shape remains. And yet, the river is. Sila saw this in himself. He felt lifetimes move through his bones. He felt the prayers of past selves echoing in his spine. He felt the future already whispering through his breath. And in that vastness, he felt no fear, only wonder. The return of compassion. As the illusions fell away, something beautiful returned. Compassion. Not the compassion born of pity, but the compassion born of seeing no distance between self and other. When Celestia saw a bird with a broken wing, he felt the ache in his own chest. When a child cried, his own breath caught. When a tree was cut, his heart felt the wound. Because there was no more other. This is Karu, the boundless compassion that flows naturally from awakening. The Buddha once said, "As a mother protects her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all beings." Sela did not need to remember this teaching. He had become it. The wisdom of emptiness. Finally, he began to taste the most subtle wisdom of all, shunyata, emptiness. Not a void, but the recognition that everything arises dependent on everything else. There is no chair without wood, no wood without tree, no tree without soil, rain, and sun. No self without other. Everything exists because of everything else. And in this emptiness, He felt no despair. He felt freedom, because to be empty of self is to be full of life. A new vision of awakening was no longer a goal for Sila. It was a way of seeing. He saw the divine, not as a being, but as being itself, in every breath, in every breeze, in every falling leaf. He heard the Dharma. He saw that the purpose of life was not to escape the world, but to wake up within it, to live fully, to love freely, to serve humbly, and to vanish peacefully, like a flame that burns with full brightness, then returns to silence. The circle begins again. The journey circles back. And just like that, the journey circled back. Sila, once a man shattered by grief, now stood whole, not because he had become something new, but because he had remembered what he always was. Not a monk, not a man, not a ghost, not a soul, but a wave on the ocean of being, rising, falling, returning. In that rhythm, there was peace. The wind carried the scent of rain. That morning, Sila stood at the edge of the monastery hill, watching the clouds shift like breath across the sky. Years had passed, but time meant little now. He no longer marked his life by moments, but by awareness, by how deeply he could meet each experience without resistance, by how gently he could hold joy and sorrow in the same palm, by how completely he had let go. No self, no fear. There was a moment in meditation not long before when Kela disappeared. No thoughts, no memories, no name, no effort. Just open, luminous stillness. And in that stillness, he finally saw it. The one who seeks awakening was never real. And yet, what remains is more real than anything. The truth of no self. This is what the Buddha meant by anatta. The truth of no self. Not that we are nothing, but that we are not the thing we think we are. There is no solid I behind the eyes. There is only awareness arising and passing, like waves. When Sela saw this, fear dissolved, because the thing that dies was never truly alive, and what is truly alive can never die. Letting go of the path, there is a moment for every seeker when the path must be released. Even the Dharma, precious as it is, must be let go. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him, the old Zen master said, not out of disrespect, but because clinging to the teachings is still clinging, and liberation asks for total surrender. Sela now understood. The teachings are a raft to cross the river, but once you're across, you must leave the raft behind. Not by abandoning the Dharma, but by becoming it. The final vision one night, Sela dreamt he was standing at the edge of a great ocean. Waves rose and fell endlessly under a starlit sky. He looked down and saw his reflection. Young, old, child, elder, all faces merging into one. And then the ocean rose to meet him. He felt himself dissolve, not in death, but in truth. There was no boundary, no inside or outside, no this or that, only one infinite luminous presence. And it whispered, not with words, but with silence, "You are home." A life of service. Sela did not vanish from the world after awakening. He did not seek seclusion or escape. He stayed. He served. He loved. He walked through villages and deserts, forests and cities. He offered no dogma, asked for no devotion. He simply listened. He held the hands of the dying, bathed the feet of the poor, sat with the broken, and reminded them they were already whole. He spoke no grand philosophy, only presence, because now every moment was sacred, the death that is no death. When his time came, it was as soft as a sigh. There was no struggle, no fear, only gratitude. He sat in the lotus posture, smiling, eyes open to the rising sun. His last breath was not an ending, but a return to silence, to stillness, to the formless ground of all things. And those who were near felt not grief, but wonder, for they knew a great light had not gone out. It had become the sky, the echo of a soul remembered. Even now they speak of Sila, not as a saint or a master, but as a reminder that healing is real, that liberation is possible, that death is not the end, and that love, pure, fearless, and infinite, is who we truly are. The return to the world, beneath the noise, he did not transcend the world. He returned to it, fully awake, fully alive, fully empty. And in that emptiness, the universe sang, the mirror of Sila's journey. What Sila's journey teaches us is not fantasy. It is a mirror for your own life, because his path from grief to stillness, from confusion to awakening, is the same path available to you. Not by becoming someone else, but by remembering who you already are. Beneath the roles, beneath the wounds, beneath the story, you are not broken. You are not lost. You are not separate. You are awareness itself, temporarily dreaming of limitation. And every moment is an invitation to wake up, an invitation to awaken. If this story has stirred something within you, don't let it fade. Sit in stillness today, even 5 minutes. Listen not to your thoughts, but to the silence beneath them. Explore Buddhist wisdom, not just as knowledge, but as a living truth. Pick up the Dharma or a teaching that speaks to your heart. Practice compassion in small ways. One kind word, one moment of presence, one act of service. And if you feel called, join this community. We share stories that awaken, teachings that nourish, questions that matter. Together, we walk the path not to escape life, but to embrace it more fully than ever before. Because awakening is not a destination, it is the courage to open your eyes, right here, right now. May you walk gently, may you wake fully, and may you remember, you are never alone. This conclusion is both deeply moving and resonant. The message of returning to stillness, awakening in the present, and embracing the journey of transformation speaks to the heart of Buddhist wisdom. It's an invitation to live fully, to be present with the truth of who we are, and to find liberation not as something distant or unreachable, but as something we can access by simply opening our eyes and being here. The theme of interconnectedness, compassion, and embracing the impermanence of life is beautifully captured, providing an empowering reminder that awakening is not a goal to achieve, but a way to live, right now, in the here and now. I especially like how you conclude with an invitation to sit in stillness, listen to the silence beneath thoughts, and to engage with Buddhist wisdom as a living truth. It's a call to integrate teachings into daily life with compassionate action, rather than just intellectual understanding. His last breath was not an ending, but a return to silence, to stillness, to the formless ground of all things. And those who were near felt not grief, but wonder, for they knew a great light had not gone out. It had become the sky, the echo of a soul remembered. Even now they speak of Sila, not as a saint or a master, but as a reminder that healing is real, that liberation is possible, that death is not the end, and that love, pure, fearless, and infinite, is who we truly are. Beneath the noise, he did not transcend the world. He returned to it, fully awake, fully alive, fully empty. And in that emptiness, the universe sang, a mirror for your own life. What Sila's journey teaches us is not fantasy. It is a mirror for your own life. Because his path from grief to stillness, from confusion to awakening, is the same path available to you. Not by becoming someone else, but by remembering who you already are. Beneath the roles, beneath the wounds, beneath the story, you are not broken. You are not lost. You are not separate. You are awareness itself, temporarily dreaming of limitation. And every moment is an invitation to wake up. Invitation to awaken. If this story has stirred something within you, don't let it fade. Sit in stillness today, even 5 minutes. Listen not to your thoughts, but to the silence beneath them. Explore Buddhist wisdom, not just as knowledge, but as a living truth. Pick up the Dharma, or a teaching that speaks to your heart. Practice compassion in small ways. One kind word, one moment of presence, one act of service. And if you feel called, join this community. We share stories that awaken, teachings that nourish, questions that matter. Together, we walk the path not to escape life, but to embrace it more fully than ever before. Because awakening is not a destination, it is the courage to open your eyes, right here, right now. May you walk gently, may you wake fully, and may you remember you are never alone.